This is Lloyd Smith and my wife Virginia to my left. Back about 1944, she gave me a 35mm camera. And in 1944, I started taking color slide photos. What we are about to show you are some of those photos from back in that era up to close to the present day.
Well, our first picture is taken out at the Hollow swimming pool, and the young lady diving her name was Betty Morrow. She was a very good diver. It was a wonderful place to spend your summers. We usually had a season ticket for our family, and you could spend a lot of quality time out there. This was 1944. 1946, it still was a thriving swimming pool. And undoubtedly one of those on the diving board's one of ours.
Remember how they had the toboggan and the slides and the tops that you could play on?
Yeah. And this was what it looked like in 1984. 20 years apart, and the Hollow was no more. Just the remnants of the slides. And now they've replaced it with a nice city park and a wonderful shelter for picnics and family reunions. It's a lovely place. And a good walking path. It's about a mile, maybe just a little over a mile. It's so pretty in the spring with the red bud, and the white, I think, is dogwood, but it might be a flowering fruit tree of some sort. And along that path you see a lot of spring flowers, the trillium, there's a lot of those, a lot of spring beauty. And the May apples, this one's in bloom, the little apple comes later. And in the fall it's just as pretty, there's a lot of fall color out on the picnic grounds there. It's a beautiful place. Now this one goes back to 1944, Don Gentili, our ace from World War II, had come home, and a big parade for him. It's uncanny that the window frame just joined in with his chin, and it looks like he has a goatee. Don did not have a goatee. So this is the statue of Don up on Canal Place. I remember him in school. He was a little younger than me, but I remember him well. And the day they dedicated the statue, there was a community choir, gave a program, and if the pictures were a little bigger, we could identify an awful lot of those people, but I can tell you that the one on the end to my left, that would be the left end of the picture, is Jerry McAfee. And there are others in there if I could get closer. This picture dates back also to 1944, the kiddie pool at Fountain Park. And the old hospital as it looked in 1944. 3 of our children were born there. And the high school as it looked in 1944. It's undergone some changes now. The graduations were held there. I remember those well.
And remember the presidents on the wall?
Yes, this was that auditorium was so pretty, and I hope in some way those have been preserved if they ever use that room again. Then for a time we had graduation outdoors. This was graduation in 1967. Held over at the stadium. And this is how the high school looks today. The windows have been modified because it's now apartments, and they are putting in new steps at this time. The old sundial is gone. Flowers are blooming there now. A lot of different changes, but the building mainly remains the same. At the other end, they built that new addition that housed the cafeteria and I don't know what all, and now that's the townhouses, and it's still all residents, but that beautiful trees on the corner really is pretty in the fall. This is the old Schmidlap Library. It's now the museum where the art show is held each year when they have the Taste of the Arts, and they have this art show going on there. But this was once the town library. And then there became the Flesh Public Library, and it has served us well these many years, and now they're outgrowing their place. So maybe we'll have to be taking more pictures soon.
What was the date of that picture?
1945.
45.
Mm-hmm. The old Pennsylvania Railroad station down on Wayne Street, and a train going through. That was some lucky photography. This is one of the two accidents that happened here in Piqua. There was a troop train accident, but this is not. This is just a derailment of several cars. 1951. Just another view of the same accident. It always drew a crowd. And then in 1946, we had a sesquicentennial parade. And Lloyd, I can't tell for sure what company was that?
Greenville.
The float?
From the city of Greenville.
From the city of Greenville. We had big floats in the parades back then. I want you to keep your eye on the background, the buildings too. There's a little building there. I think it's two women standing in front. Lloyd's got a pointer. Keep your eye on that little building. Maybe some of you will remember it. It was a little newsstand or something. Some had magazines and newspapers for sale there. There's another one.
Hartzell Industries.
Hartzell Industries had a big float. And this is the Orfelt and Blanket Company. And Betsy Ross. And now if you look at the back, you see that that other building was the Wayne Hotel. Now I don't remember the Wayne Hotel, but I was here in Piqua, and I was married to Lloyd at the time of this parade. So my memory's just not too good. And there's somebody sitting on the roof of the little magazine stand now. And Governor Lausche came to visit Piqua and rode in the car during the parade. How many of you remember the blizzard of 1950? We really had the snow. The old hotel was covered, and we really had to dig ourselves out that time. I don't know if this is the first egg hunt for the little ones, but it was back in 1958. If it isn't the first, it's one of the very early ones up on Upper Fountain Park. We didn't hunt eggs. We had our own egg decorator at home. My cousin lived with us, and she just loved to do things like this, so she did some special eggs. This is the old YMCA, and if you notice, gasoline was 29.9 cents a gallon. That's quite now it's $1.29. Now this is the newer YMCA, but they've changed it since this picture. This was in 1978, and now they have a ramp at the front, and they've changed the windows somewhat, but don't remember exactly what, but there are changes to the front of the building, and they have a ramp. This was something that our whole family used to enjoy. We'd take the children out on Echo Lake and go skating, and you can see out there in the middle someone has a child on a sled. We always took whichever one was the baby and put them in a box and tied the box to the sled and blanket in there around the little one, and we'd skate on the lake, and the whole family enjoyed it. Now here's a little do you remember. This is all torn down now, but the brick building at the back is still there. It's Water Street that you're looking at, And that, where that brick building is, there's the alley that goes through to the bank, and all this other has been torn down, and that's where the little park area is now. Little green space. It's a corner of Water and Main.
This used to be an apartment area, and it had a fire, and that's why it was torn down.
Okay. Some years ago, they had painted a picture on the east end of the bank, and Lloyd was trying for a night picture when the lights were on and still some light in the sky, but it kind of obliterates the picture. I can see the bird. There was a bird flying, and I don't remember what all else was in that picture. But then it was the Piqua National Bank. And we had the atomic plant, 1967. If I'm not mistaken, it was one of 2 pilot programs in the United States. This one and one in Oregon, I think it was. But don't quote me on that. I could be entirely wrong. Then there was a terrible fire at the McKinley poultry plant in 1968. It took away the jobs from a lot of people, but it was a nasty fire.
Do you know what's there now, Jenny?
Yes, that's where the man has a business that makes the garage door openers.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. This fire made us stop and look. We couldn't figure out for sure, but it's the southwest corner of the public square. And the big building on the far right, there's a little sign on the awning that says Wraps. So that was Wraps Clothing Store. And next to it was Jack's Drugstore. And next to that is the Psychedelic Supermarket. We neither one remember that one. And the last little sign there is the, oh, I can't read.
Piqua Office Supply.
Yeah, Piqua Office Supply. So Piqua Office Supply is still here in town. The rest of the businesses are all closed up and gone. But there was a very bad fire there, and there were apartments in the top of the Wrap store. I know some people who used to live up there. From the back, you can see that they're trying to put the fire out, but there's still a blaze up in there. You can see the fire.
You know, we reversed these pictures, really. The fire is still going here.
Yeah, well, that's what I said. It's still burning. And then this is what would be the bank parking lot now. There were other small buildings out back that it all burned and took water and ice damage. It was a real nasty night, and everything was freezing up. So there's the back of the building from a little distance. You can see the damage, and the Coca-Cola sign on the side wasn't damaged at all. Well, on to more pleasant things. This was Swift Run back in 1971. Now that was the year that we had a real drought, and you can see here how low the lake was. Also, the Great Miami River was not so great at that time. That was also 1971.
You recognize this?
Yeah, back there's the atomic plant. Then we had another parade. This was 1971, and it had something to do with fire, but I don't know what the parade was for. But this is the Snoopy characters, and the little fellow crawling on the grass has the seat of his pants on fire, and Snoopy is on the doghouse, and he's got his water hose, and the little sign says,
"Playing with fire will get you in the end."
Okay.
Notice the background.
Oh yes. That's what are they, Lloyd?
A gasoline station.
Doesn't say how
Atlantic Richfield.
Doesn't say how much the gas was there, does it?
No, I can't see a sign in there.
Okay. This is a part of the same parade, an old fire truck, the kind that they had to pump the water by hand and pulled by horses.
And once again, notice the right background.
Yes, the old Coke home to many a school dance. This building is long gone. This was called the May Block. It was on South Main Street. This picture was taken in 1972, and the building is torn down now. But this is what used to be there. There was a fruit market in the corner. There was Sperry's Jewelry, and there's another one in there, Lloyd. What was the one?
It says furniture.
Okay.
JP Furniture.
All right. Maybe a lot of you might remember the fruit market or Sperry's Jewelry being down there.
Can't make it out.
Then there's the car wash up on South Street. It's still there, but this time there were the National Guard was up there washing all their equipment. And they're not allowed to do that anymore, I don't think. At least
No, they have it, it's posted now.
there's signs up there that only automobiles. St. Mary's School in 1972. It's undergone a lot of changes, additions, and a lot of things happening. And then we had a hero welcomed home, a man who was a prisoner of war for several years, Bill Baugh. And this was in 1972. He was a prisoner of war in North Korea. There's Then we had another catastrophic fire. Now, there was never anyone hurt or anything, but this was the fire at the Toma store up on the east side of Main Street in 1973. And the Old Spring Street School, 1973. Another picture of it. The little cupola, the little top part where the bell was removed and taken out to somewhere out on Park Avenue. I think it was one of the Frenches, but I'm not sure. But bought that or took that out there and made a little guest house out of it. And on one of our house tours one time, I was there and got to see inside of it, and it was a darling little guest house. Had a little bedroom and tiny, tiny little bathroom, and it was just a neat place for a guest to stay. And then in 1975, we had a bicentennial parade. People are pretty well dressed up there with, I see Betsy Ross is there with her flag, and Uncle Sam, and a lot of other characters in the dress of the 1770s.
And notice the gas price was 56 and 9/10 cents.
Oh, gas has gone up a little
really
bit.
Inflated.
At that parade, there was this steam calliope. Came from Miamisburg, wasn't it, Lloyd?
Yes.
Came up from Miamisburg, and they played. And I love to watch a calliope. I think they're something. I just feel like that's a real something from the past. Oh, the old Fort Piqua on the square that was built up there and stayed there for several months. We had a class meeting there, a Sunday school class meeting there one night, and inside the wall was a shelf where soldiers were supposed to be able to stand and shoot over the top of the wall. We used it to spread out our supper, and of course we got permission from the police and all that. But during the evenings, some of the kids went up in the tower, and another policeman on patrol saw them and he didn't have any idea what those kids were doing up there, so he came storming in and was ready to arrest all of us till we told him we had permission to be there.
And notice the Coke hall is still there.
Yeah. And this is our own Keystone Cop. His name was Jerry Smith. No relation to us Smiths, but he was about the same age as some of our kids. And Mr. Joe Getz was all dressed up for the occasion. This may have been something about the same time, I'm not sure. But that's Irene Dittmer, the lady standing, and Dorothy Dewar is the lady in black. And I do not know who the other woman is, and I wish I did. If anyone recognizes her, I wish they would let us know. And this is the Coke Hall. And if you look carefully, you can see the Fort Piqua Hotel up there, and the stockade of the fort is still there. So this building to the right is the back end of the Sheriff Bell auto dealers, and this was the part where they did their mechanics on the car. So it went clear through the block. And this was the public square in 1976, and we evidently had quite a carnival going on. I don't remember just what that occasion was, but there was certainly a lot of rides and all kind of activity on the square. Lloyd, can you point out anything back across?
Notice it's a different oil company. Ford is over there.
The Ford dealership. Now they make T-shirts in that area, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
And look right here.
That's the waffle stand of the EUB Church. We've been making waffles for 50 years until the church closed, and that was our waffle stand back there in 1976. Okay. This is more of the bicentennial parade, but there's the stockade, and where is the Coke Hall? That's when it came down, about 1976. All gone. Exposes two buildings back there that are on the parking lot and the space of the Piqua Daily Call now. That is not the corner of Ash Street, that's the corner of High Street. Over, honey, point to the High Street side. There, that's High Street, and that would be the parking lot for the Call, and that's where the Call building is now. And we don't know, one of them was a furniture store at one time, and one lady in an audience that we had told us that her grandfather had a brewery in the White Building. That was what it originally was, so we're not real sure about those things. Another picture of the parade. This is down on the corner of Miami and Main. Boy, they really had some... Wayne Street, yeah. We really had some good floats, and I can remember the ox teams that came through. In fact, one of the men that drove an ox team came to our church for church on Sunday morning. Now, I want to show you what a good cameraman my husband is. It's hard enough to take a picture of words on a wheel and get them standing right side up so you can read them. But you notice he got the big wheel and the little wheel. They're both so that you can read them, which is not a very common occurrence because the little wheel goes around at a different pace, and very seldom do you see them like that. Oh, he's good. This is St. Mary's Church before they did their remodeling.
I hope this brings back a lot of good memories.
Well, I do too. It's always hard to give up some of our old things, but always some things replaced that then becomes dear to us too. This is the other end of that Sheriff Bell building. This brick building in the front with the Coke sign on it was the showroom for Sheriff Bell on Ash Street. And the back part then is their garage part.
When was that?
76.
76.
Mm-hmm. And out at Fountain Park, our big Chautauqua building collapsed under the weight of the snow and just really about demolished it. A lot of people thought it was gone for good, but the young people at the JVS rebuilt it and put the new roof on it and did a fine job. So that's where we can go every year on the 4th of July and watch the fireworks. Now we're back You see, that was Canal Place, isn't it? 1978, they had just torn down the Coke Hall and made the big open space, but nothing had been done with it. No paving, nothing else had been accomplished back there. It's a different place now. This is on Wayne Street, just south of the post office, the old Glencoe Hotel. That dates back to 1978. Also down the street there is Pat Dill's realtor and Jerry's gift shop, which eventually moved out east of town, out by the mall. And this is the old North Street School in 1982. Our oldest son went there for kindergarten, even though we lived up on Linden Avenue, up on Favorite Hill. But they were rebuilding or going to build the Favorite Hill School, and the year he started to kindergarten, there was no place for all the children, so he and two other little boys from up on the hill rode the city bus and went to North Street School. This is the dedication of the new gazebo. I don't know if there was a special, some reason for green and white balloons, unless somebody just liked green and white, or if it had a special significance. But that's the dedication of the new gazebo on the square. And this one is a little close-up view of a couple of the people all dressed for the occasion. This was, like I say, at the dedication. And from up in the building off the south of the square, Lloyd went up in an upstairs room and took this picture of the whole square in that hotel and the gazebo and all the new cement, and everything was so white and not very many cars. It really looks different. Wouldn't it be a shame to lose that building? Now, about a year ago, we had, sometime last year, we had a Clyde Dupin Crusade over at the stadium, and this is the first one in '86. Piqua Council of Churches sponsored Mr. Dupin in a crusade here. The old telephone building on Wayne Street. There's a little, I think it was a filling station or something, that little building, wasn't it, Lloyd?
Well, it had been at one time, but it was nothing there now.
Just abandoned.
When this picture was taken.
Okay. And there's the Elks?
Yes.
Okay. Now this is an interesting picture. That mark on the telephone pole is over across from the armory, and that's how high the water was in the flood of 1913. So I'm about 5'7½", so it was...
The sign says 13 feet.
Okay. And there is an organization called the Greater Ohio Bicycle Association, and every year they take a tour around a different part of Ohio by bicycle. They travel somewhere around 300 to 350 miles in the week, and they stay at different towns. And this one, they came through Piqua, and that's our son Don. He joined the ride and has gone on several of them. And someone built this thing of the wheels, this arch up there, in celebration, and it was quite an affair for a few days. They were fed by people here in town, and they slept out at Edison State. This is whole family activity. Some people have a little child in a little buggy-like thing that rides right along behind their bicycle. Oh, I was going to say we're back to the gazebo, but this is the Mills Brothers celebration for the Mills Brothers when they put that plaque uptown by the gazebo. This was in 1990, and all the Mills Brothers are gone now. But this picture, Don, the one in the black suit there, was still living, and he was here with the group. But the rest of them are, I don't know what relation they are, but they were still singing some. But He's gone now. Well, this building had been through a lot of history. It was Robbins and Myers during the war. It was a hosiery before that. It was Piqua Daily Call. I don't know of anything else that was in that building, but it's been torn down, and now it's a green space, parking lot, and all for the call office. This well, a lot of us remember this place if we went to high school, because it's right across the street from the high school on the corner of High and College. And at one time it was a grocery store. What was his name?
Frank Walk.
Frank Walk had a grocery store there. It was a beauty parlor. I remember getting permanent there, and several different things over the years. And now it is all gone, and in its place is Melcher Sowers Funeral Home. Then there's the Victory Heights. We remember a lot about Victory Heights because we lived through those war years. There's only a few buildings left, and they are used by the city for various storage and all. But they used to be, all those were apartments. And for a long time that was just a big vacant space up there after the buildings were torn down. Nothing but the cement slabs they rested on. And then they made it into a park, and it was dedicated to the Pitzenberger boy and William Pitzenberger. So it's now William Pitzenberger Park, and it's quite a sports complex. There's several baseball diamonds. There are soccer fields, football fields.
I think there's at least 5 football or baseball diamonds there.
I don't know.
And
I know grandchildren play on field 1 or 2 or something. You have to find your way through them when you get there. And they have the big swimming pool with the water slide. It was a cold day and towards the end of the season when Lloyd took this picture, but there is one girl going down the water slide, so she's not afraid of a cold dip. And then there's a little playground area for the smaller children to play while the older brothers and sisters are in the ball game. This is what it used to look like down on Wayne Street overhead where the railroad went across Wayne Street. This is 1988. Of course, it was there a lot longer than that, but you went up to the depot. This is looking north. And you went up those steps up to the platform, up to the where you would get on the train, or on across under the thing over to the depot. And then one day we come down Wayne Street, and there was a sign there that said the road was closed, and they were beginning the work to demolish it. This was in '91. And they kept working at it till they took it all down. And now we have a nice bike path and a walking path that crosses Wayne Street there. They've really improved things with that. And this is the Atlas and the Superior in 1994. They employed a lot of people in the hosiery, the underwear industry. It's a picture of it from across the river. And now the buildings are gone, and that's the site of one of our newer parks, the Heritage Green. And this was in 1999. The bricks around this circle are all commemorative bricks, and you notice one right towards the front there has a little white spot on it. It's a little white stone. Years and years ago, the mayor of Piqua, oh Lloyd, you have to help me with his name.
Kaiser.
Mr. Kaiser was mayor of Piqua. His granddaughter was in Lloyd's graduating class in 1936. She now lives near Spokane, Washington, and they got in touch with her in planning some of these celebrations, and she's not been able to come back to any of them, but Lloyd wrote to her about this memorial, and she wondered if about it, and she put a brick there for her grandfather. So Lloyd put a little white stone on her grandfather's brick. and sent her a picture. There's also commemoration there of firemen and police that have been lost in the line of duty. It's a Piqua police, and there's each of the little markers in front represent an individual who was lost in the service, and then the big one is the plaque that explains it all. And this is
McMackin's.
yeah, McMackin's. I guess, yeah, down 1995, we had a lot of rain. Everything was just flooded, and those oil tanks were empty, and that whole area just flooded and tipped the oil tanks. We had something down on the river that a lot of people never realized the extent of it. We had the water skiing. There were barefoot water skiing and all kinds of acrobatics. And in talking to some of the folks there, we found out that in the water skiing community, this spot was one of the best loved in the world. Here in our own little Miami River banks, it was the best water conditions, the best bank conditions for water skiing, and they just loved to come here. But you can see there weren't very many Pickwads that went down to watch.
Well, the water was always the same because of the dam down at the light plant.
Then for a while we had the underwear, what is it called, festival. And this was the Undy 500, where they had the track laid out with the bales of straw, and the usually they were city dignitaries that drove the little cars around and around in the Undy 500. This is part of the crowd down there at one of the festivals, and you can see we did have big crowds. If you're ever looking for pretty fall color, don't miss Edison State, those beautiful red trees that line their parking lot. Now, when I first saw this picture, Lloyd says, "Where is it?" And I could not remember. I couldn't figure what in the world he was taking a picture of. I said, "There's a white fence and the road," and then it dawned on me, it's the point of land where they built the Veterans Memorial. And the way it was before was just a little grove of trees. So that's where the memorial was built. Wonderful use for that point of land, and a beautiful memorial here. This, I think it's just wonderful, and the bricks around there are commemorative also. So now with the Veterans services all held down there, they don't have it up in the park where they marched out on the bridge and fired a salute to the sailors. It's all done at the one place, but every time I would stand and watch those people line up and hear the command to fire, I'd still jump out of my skin when they shot those things. This was the first Habitat house in Piqua, and it also had the distinction of being the first handicapped house in the whole area, if not the state, I don't know. But it was built for Fred Scott, and this was the laying out of the house for them. And then as it took shape, this was the first one, and now we have two on First Street. This one is on Yale. We have one on East Water Street. Where else?
South Main.
South Main.
And that's all, I think.
I think that's fair. We have, I think, 5 in Piqua now. And they're always looking for lots where they can build more. They have a lot of people waiting for homes. And there was at the dedication. The lady and the little girl there own the home in Covington. They built one in Covington for them.
It was.
This is an unusual couple of slides. This was an eclipse of the sun, and he got the picture of that. And then he looked down at his feet, and the shadows on our patio, that's a cement patio you're looking at, were little crescents all over, like little tiny eclipses all over the patio. And to look at that, it's hard to believe that's just the floor of a cement patio. Now, one busy day, the students from Wilder and Bennett descended on the plot of land downtown there at the site of the Loch 9 Park and tried to dig out the old lock. They had shovels and wheelbarrows, and they almost wheeled each other out, but they saved every little thing that they found that might be something that they could categorize as a keepsake, but they saved all kinds of little things they found in there. And at the end of the day, they had found the lock down to the cement. Of course, they didn't finish the hole. They had to get a bulldozer and some scoops to do that, but they did dig down to the cement. Now it's all cleaned up, and the grass is planted, and the benches are in, and the cemented where the water used to go. It's just hard to believe boats going through that little narrow place. But the boats were little narrow boats, I guess. And now you walk along that wall. Every time I go, they've added more signs and more pictures, and I haven't read the first ones yet. I can read the top row, but my old back won't bend over to read the bottom row, and I can read a few, and then I have to stand up again. But someday I'm going to start with the bottom row and see if I can't finish all of those. Just a pretty scene out along the hydraulic, just north of Park Avenue Bridge, down by the hydraulic. It's the Johnson Farm as it looked in 1945. It had been rented, it had been let go, that's the way it was.
It was a resident tenant farmer living there then.
Yes, our daughter attended 4-H class out there, our club meeting there, when she was just a kid. The old spring house, now I see on this picture it did have a new roof, but it was in bad situation. The windows were rotting out, and there was just mushy ground to walk on all the way around out back there. Now this one is in 1967, and they've got the windows boarded up, and they're beginning to clear the land to make it into a lake instead of just swamp. And we took our kids and walked along the path of the old canal, and that's all the water there was in it. You couldn't afloat a little toy boat in that one, but we enjoyed a Sunday afternoon hike along the old canal. And when you do that sort of foolish thing, you end up with mud on your boots. And then this is shortly before the dedication. This is, they've got the swampy area all corralled into a lake, and the spring house looks like it's pretty well done. And the house on the hill looks like it's about ready for visitors. And that was at the dedication. I think that was 1972. There I'm branching into John Carpenter's territory. He could tell me the day, month, and year that was dedicated, I bet. I think that's pretty, the reflection in the lake, and to realize that it was just a swampy area, and the old spring house was falling down, and everything was such a mess, and what a beautiful job they did. And this is the, now, how'll I say this? This is the new boat. This is the new boat then. Now they have a new boat.
This is the original boat.
This is the original General Harrison, isn't it?
Yes, and this was
pull it along.
It was a day of dedication.
And you can see what a wide space of water there is now that they cleaned out the old canal, because where we walked, it wasn't more than a ditch. Now we have the Heritage Festival out there each year, and they've finished the house and found that there was a patio, and They've built all kinds of outbuildings, and it's a wonderful place to visit. A lot of things out there to see. They used to have, the first year or two, a parade that went from uptown clear out to the grounds, but that didn't last but a year or two. I guess there wasn't too many people wanted to walk that far. And now they have the Indian encampment, and they have the mountain men encampment. And it's really an interesting place to walk around. This was a sheep shearing. They used to have several of this kind of activities, but that man that's standing is using his hands to go around and around like the pedals of a bicycle, and by doing that he's generating the power that runs the clippers that's shearing the sheep. And then there's a girl that comes up from Florida about every other year and does bobbin lace. And it's just fantastic to stand there and watch her swing those little bobbins over and under, and she makes lace about an hour for an inch, I think. I don't know, it may be longer than that. But she made me a bookmark. And she makes lace for around collars and all different things. Then there are carvers. This man that carves the Indian heads, I think they are just superb. And then at the end of the day, sometimes they'll have a balloon ascension, but this is just kind of a look over the quiet festival grounds when the crowd's going home and we're ready to shut it down for another year. And I think that just about shuts down our story.